something almost about rotoscoping where it doesn't jump off the page. I'll watch this later or something, you know? Like, it's never like, oh, rotoscoping, I gotta check this out.
Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3.
Drive-by movies you're watching.
Fresh releases.
My name's Blaze.
And my name is James.
And this week we're talking the brand new film to Netflix, Richard Linklater's Apollo 10.5, A Space-Age Childhood.
Apollo 10.5 is a coming-of-age story set in the suburbs of Houston, Texas, in the summer of 1969, centered around the historic Apollo 11 moon landing. So I think we all remember that movie. I believe it's called Apollo 11, where like the astronauts are on the moon and then like a bunch of aliens F them up, and it's like a found footage movie. This is an interesting take on that.
Oh, that weird like 8mm found footage movie. From like 2013, I feel like, or 2013 or 2014.
I think I saw it, but I have no recollection of what happened. But I just remember it upset like everyone who saw it, though. It was just in the middle of the found footage craze, and it was like a cool different take, being like a space movie, but I can't recall what it's about. But now this is about, of course, the famous Apollo 11 landing. Richard Linklater's new film. It's been quite some time. I didn't see his last movie with Steve Carell. I forgot the name of it, but Blaze, what are you thinking about his newest film?
So yeah, I have to say I agree with you. I hadn't seen that. I don't think it was his latest movie, but I know which movie you're thinking about. The like, it's not Flags of Our Fathers, but it's like the title's basically that, like when one flag meets another, so something like that. I'll have to check that out. I think it was an Amazon exclusive. But anyways, yeah, this film, I feel like Richard Linklater has this special ability to consistently fly under the radar for some reason, while still being like very true to himself, very true to like his vision, and still just knocking it out of the park. Because I freaking love this movie. I thought it was it was like a fun, interesting take. And it was so nostalgic, even as somebody who didn't grow up in that time. Like, he just paints this beautiful picture of like growing up in the 60s. And yeah, I honestly love this film. I was like gushing over. I was freaking cracking up during so many of his like little analogies of telling and, you know, painting the picture of what it was like to grow up in the 60s.
Yeah, this is definitely just the actual representation of a movie or like writing class where a teacher would say, show me, like, don't tell me, show me. And that's what this movie is for the most part, too. And of course, the first thing you're going to notice is this is an animated movie. Of course, it's like kind of based off of realistic movement, similar to what he did with A Scanner Darkly. But it's very different, though. The artwork is very beautiful. And like already, I'm like, this is already the contender for best animated film at the Oscars. I hope, at least. I don't know what's going on with the Oscars these days. But what's it called? It was just like it's a movie that was not made for us per se. It's a movie that was made with like the heart of like people who grew up back then. Yeah, Richard Linklater just beautifully paints the picture for us to still follow along and enjoy what we're watching. The idea of like it centering around just like all the TV shows that he grew up with as a kid and stuff, and just showing us these are all shows we probably never heard of, but he paints the picture of just like, oh, you probably haven't heard of it, got canceled, but like I'll never forget it and stuff. Like, he just like makes us feel like we're there, like we're watching like the life story of our grandpa. And I can just listen to Jack Black talk like all day, honestly. I'm not sure if he has a podcast or anything like that, but just has such a heartwarming voice, and it's exciting to hear him team back up with Richard Linklater. It's been so long since School of Rock, and I'm not sure if they've worked together since, but this is a fantastic movie to come back to, and very different from what I would have expected from Richard Linklater, as well as Jack Black too.
So a couple notes. I think if this film was on Apple TV and not Netflix, it would probably win an Oscar next year. But because it's on Netflix, it's not going to get any love. And then also, it's they did work on Bernie. How could you forget?
Right. Bernie. I love that movie. Actually, once I started thinking about it, I was like, wait, I remember that movie. I'm pretty sure it's Linklater, but you're right, it was. Yeah.
And then I feel like he must have. I know Jack Black has a YouTube channel, Jablinski.
Okay.
I don't know. I think he plays like video games or something. I think maybe that was even like just during COVID. I'm not really sure. I remember he had a huge beard. But yeah, I think like you said, his voice is just so soothing. This feels like his narration. Like, I think everyone knows, like, I absolutely love narration. I know a lot of people hate it, but I will always be a narration sim. And I think that, like, just his voice is so soothing, and it just really transports you back to the 1960s, gets you this exact feel of like what it was like to, you know, have all these American heroes that are landing on the moon, and everyone knew these household names by, like, they knew these astronauts, and it was such a tragedy, you know, when 3 of them were lost. And just that whole, like, this really is like this space age childhood. A lot of people are calling this a coming of age movie, and then a lot of people are coming at those people and saying this is not a coming of age movie. I don't think any of that is important. I think we all know that Richard Linklater is like an expert of chill, or like an author of chill. Like, he makes movies that, you know, flow, and they don't necessarily sometimes have like the biggest plot or solid through line or narrative, but they definitely are able to kind of put you in the shoes of, whether it's Dazed and Confused or Everybody Wants Some, a certain era, and really just transport you back there. This does that perfectly with his childhood. This movie is essentially based on his childhood and you know, growing up in the 60s. It's just such a good job of transporting you, and I think that, like, if anyone, if maybe honestly, so when it comes to the rotoscoping, I thought it looks really excellent, but I feel like there's something almost about rotoscoping where it doesn't jump off the page for me, or like the streaming service, where I'm like, I'll watch this later or something, you know? Like, it's never like, oh, rotoscoping, I gotta check this out. But when I'm there and I'm watching it, I think it's incredible. I think everyone should check out something that's done rotoscoping. Why not check out something like this?
Yeah, I guess like your first impressions when you watch it is like, oh, that's interesting, but the flow just looks awkward and stuff at times. Like, I remember the first time I saw the trailer for Scanner Darkly, I was just like, what is this and stuff? And it caught my attention, but I was just like, this animation is so good, it looks just like them. But eventually I realized that, yeah, it was like rotoscoping, and it works well, but I can see why people like might be caught off guard just because it's so different. It's not the normal animation that you would expect from a movie, but it works well for a movie like this, just like with the idea of painting a picture. And I don't know how some people also just haven't really realized like Richard Linklater's style by now. Like Dazed and Confused is a classic. Like, everyone knows that there's not really a plot towards that movie. It's just capturing, you know, that those few moments within that sequence. Same thing with Everybody Wants Some. That movie takes place within a weekend, and I can't even tell you a plot of that movie. Nothing really happens. It's just what happens over a weekend for some college kids, and that was a lot of people's problem with Boyhood too. There's not really a plot. It's just a kid growing up, and it's just sequences within his life, and that's how Richard Linklater is, and it just works very well. And whether you're a fan of it or not, like, that's fine. But just like, I don't know why like we're still having this conversation. Like, it's just like, I don't get this, like, or what's this movie trying to convey? That's just his style. Like, if you're not into it, that's fine, but it's nothing like that he hasn't done before. There's a lot of stuff in here that he's done before, but I liked that he went in this different take that I never would have expected Richard Linklater to go back to making like kind of a family friendly film. Like, School of Rock was a little like still out there, but it's still fun for families. And you know, like, after his last few movies, though, this is not the direction I expected too. And even seeing him do a Netflix film too, like, I had no idea that this was being made this whole time, and just kind of got released under my radar, and I'm glad that you brought it up.
Yeah, definitely. I highly recommend this movie for anyone that has enjoyed anything that's Richard Linklater, but I think it was great that you noted that this is a family-friendly movie, and he like, I mean, definitely the past couple movies that he's made have not been family friendly, not been like obscene or anything, but just definitely not like things you could watch with the kids around. And I think some of his greatest like work has been some of his commercial work, like School of Rock is literally School of Rock is like one of those movies that you could show anyone and they're like, I don't know about this or whatever. If they just saw the poster, maybe they know who Jack Black is, maybe they don't, but like there's literally no way you could hate that movie. Like, I think it balances perfectly, like the commercial and then the artistry that the author Richard Linklater has. Like, and it's very hard for a lot of like directors to, you know, create something that's commercial that pleases both audiences, the art house audience and the commercial audience that have no idea who they are. And he just does that so well. This, I think, leans a little bit more towards the art house sentiments, but I still feel like this movie can be enjoyed by both crowds.
Yeah, like I mean, maybe some young kids, they might not be into it because there's not a whole lot of action except for the sequences where it's like within the imagination of Stan. But like, you know, just like overall though, it still flows very well. And I enjoy seeing Zachary Levi in so many projects more recently too. Like I never thought I'd enjoy Shazam, but he was a joy to watch in that movie. And then he was great also in the show Marvelous Miss Maisel. I'm now seeing him in this project. Like he's a guy I like kind of just I know was around for that show Chuck, but just like I really like seeing him. And then I am an advocate for putting Jack Black in nearly almost anything and stuff too. So it's just a joy to have him back, whether it's his voice or whether he's on the screen. It's just a joy, like I said. But yeah, it's a really fantastic movie and might not be for like every kid. Like some kids might get bored, like I said, but I think like a lot of kids though that might be interested in film and stuff. Like I knew I was interested in film at such a young age at like 12, 13 and stuff. And this is a movie that definitely would have just like made me like just like kind of just like blow my mind with just like how different things were in the past and kept me entertained. Like here I am at 32 years old, super excited and feeling nostalgic for a time I never experienced whatsoever. And like I would imagine like a lot of young kids might go through the same. So yeah, highly recommend checking it out. It's on Netflix, so there's no reason for you to not see it. And like, be sure to leave a comment letting us know what you thought about this movie.
If you guys haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and click the notification bell to get all of our latest updates.
And if you can't get enough of us here on YouTube, catch all our social media links down below with Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Anyways, guys, that'll conclude this week's episode. Tune in next week for a brand new video.